are you doing the facility, the walk, there's nothing to walk through, so how is that part?
We're going to kind of count on them running them like the other people do. In other words, consistent use of the buildings. Yes, ma'am.
What does our time frame look like to come up with a plan?
I'm anticipating probably 4 or 5 meetings at most, because this meet-to-meet stuff can get out of hand. But you can't have 4-hour meetings.
But will those be done this calendar year so that
Yes, ma'am.
things can be voted on?
He wants everything's got to be done by November.
When you do something like this, you got to go at it and get it done.
Yeah, I agree.
The only thing that's holding us up is we're doing a lot of intricate base study.
Yeah.
It's not holding us up, it's just part of the process.
We're going to have data given to us ahead of time that we can kind of digest before we come in, clueless, if you will.
You're pretty much going to come in and have the data given to you and described to you because it's not that complicated. Because I'm going to be frank with you. If you're a committee and you're working confidentially on this, it isn't fair to go out and give piecemeal information to the public. They'll be wondering, what did they come up with? People get confused about, is this our plan? You know, that sort of thing. Your responsibility is to help the district do this plan. But partial information going out is never good. I mean, right now we could give out some capacity preliminary stuff, but when I revise it, it's going to be different. So the headline would read, they have a capacity of this, and the next week, consultant finds errors in the plan.
Right.
We have confidential information given to us, but we're wanting to report back to our schools. Do we have guidelines as to
I
what
think
we're
you can
reporting
report
back?
to your schools, this is not a control freak thing, okay? But it's a real idea that you are doing a participatory process. Right? So what I'm saying to you tonight is the level that you would be explaining what you're doing. But you would be going back and say, I think we're coming up with this song for our school. What do you think? You know, that's not coherent with our team. And any data you're taking back, if it's piecemeal, I'm not suggesting you would. But you're seeing the whole picture. Repeating piecemeal to somebody else. We don't want the planning off the team. And the data's not that hard. Yes, ma'am.
When you mentioned collecting data and birth rates and core moving up, you did mention growth rates in the county. Now, building permits, new subdivisions, things like that. Is that going to be part of what we receive?
I had a soliloquy on that last time, unless I'm mistaken, but I'll go back and visit it very briefly. There is very little correlation between building permits and who shows up in school. Why? I could spend several hours on this, but I'll try to headline it. First of all, if you're talking about a house coming, a house can come in and it can have no children, 2 children, 3 children, and they can be homeschooled, privately schooled, or they can be pre-K through 12. Which? Breaks down. People use average number of kids per household for generalized planning, but you need to understand that city planning and school district planning are 2 separate things. We do it within the context of whom we're serving, but city planning, land use maps and color drawings about this is where the trend is of future development and all that. Districts that get caught up in looking at that are planning, number 1, way ahead of anything we could ever spend on. And number 2 is somebody's idea of colored maps. You can't invest tens of millions of dollars of people's prospective ideas. We've got the internally trend, like I was explaining to you, where our kids are that we are educating, and what the growth trends or decline trends of that are. That's different from city planning. We could talk about city planning a lot, but it's different. Yes?
This might be a question for someone else, but in order to get out a consistent message from the meeting, is the Board of Education, are we going to post minutes on their website, or should we write up minutes individually?
On the website.
That's a question for somebody else.
Didn't they already post the first meeting? Minutes were on the website.
Melinda, did we post those on the website for the first meeting? Do you know?
We just posted that we had a meeting and just kind of briefly described, you know, what went on, but they weren't what I would call minutes of the meeting.
I know we're videotaping this tonight, and we're planning on putting this on the website. From talking to Mr. Carey, once we start meeting in a couple of weeks, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carey, but we want our people to communicate back with their groups that the data is transparent and that it is a data-driven process. And so it's totally different than what we've ever done before in Fayette. So that's something that was exciting for me, was to have a process where it's made up of citizens and then we're exploring solutions with data. And what I think Mr. Carey is saying is the data is real data. It's not what a building permit would show as what's out there in the future, because when you have building permits, they may be built this year, they may be built 5 years from now, or they may never be built. We don't know. So he wants to deal with real data, and he wants to do the projections based on what we're actually serving. So that's what makes it good. And in answer to your question, I think in all fairness to the people on the committee, before we leave on August 30th, when we meet from 7 to 9, we'll spend 15 minutes wrapping up about questions that you may have as a committee member and how to respond. Not that it will be a canned response, but you know, let's talk about accurate data. Let's talk about how you respond. Let's talk about serving the citizens of your school and how you present it, because I think that's important. I mean, I think that's what you're going to be concerned with, because you want it to be accurate and you want it to be real, and there will be some concerns there. This is a very, very involved community, and we're blessed with a great school system.
I'm getting the process as far as us taking information back to them. What should be the process for us to bring their comments to you?
Then you would bring their comments or their requests through you. You're representing them at your school site, and we'll have a time to debrief before the next meeting when we meet again in a couple of weeks. And maybe the first 15 minutes we'll debrief again and talk about your comments, and I'll have someone there that will take minutes, okay, and we can talk about it, and then we can move forward with what we have to plan, and again we'll debrief again before we close, so that the communication and the expectations are there on that. And that's my job as the facilitator, to make sure that y'all feel comfortable with what you're doing. And of course, I'll be honest with you, I'll be on the phone with Mr. Carey, because I'm relying on him to help guide me through this process. When I read his articles, he writes a lot for the American Board Journal of School Planning. You know, that's where I read his articles. That's when I became interested in what he does, and that's when I went to the superintendent and said, this is the person we need. You know, and I think you're going to be pleased with the process. I've said all along that I think we're going to be pleased with the outcome. I don't know what the outcome is, but I have faith in it. I believe in an open process. I told Mr. Carey that was the way I ran high school at Starr's Mill, is I wanted parental involvement, I wanted stakeholder involvement, and I believe in this process with this community. And it's I don't know of a hotter political issue than redistricting. Mr. Campbell and I went through the fires of hell this past fall, and everyone said, just wait till elementary's there. You hadn't seen nothing yet. And I told Dr. Coates, I don't think I can do this unless I have some help, because we did the best job we could do, that we knew how to do.